palestra do professor Rico, é assim que ele gosta de ser chamado. Então, o professor Rico, ele é da Universidade de Illinois, em Chicago, e ele aceitou um convite nosso para ministrar uma disciplina aqui no programa de pós-graduação. Então, ele está aqui desde 26 de maio, trabalhando intensivamente conosco, com a pós-graduação, e hoje ele vai fazer uma fala, né, aberta fora da disciplina, tá? Então, ele vai falar em inglês, mas bem devagar, com PowerPoint. Eu acho que vai dar bem para a gente aproveitar. Então, Rico, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for coming. Disculpe, mas no falo portugués. Yo puedo hablar un poquito español, pero no bastante español para decir en español. So, entonces necesita hablar en inglés. Lo siento mucho. So I'm going to speak in English. I will speak slowly and clearly. And I have written many of the words on the PowerPoint slides. So hopefully that will help you follow the talk. Can we turn off the lights?
Pode pronunciar a
That one too?
Essa é outra, é a tomada normal.
Because I'm going to show a video and it will help to have lessons. And I have to read, so I'm sitting here. So my talk outline, first of all, let me say thank you to Ole and Medium, in particular, the 10 students of the discipline who I have been working with and learning from this whole week, and really learning much about Brazil, and having a very good experience here and making me think a lot. My starting point in this talk is international solidarity. I am fortunate to be here in the South, working with people who care deeply about life, the planet, each other, and les damnés de la terre, or the wretched of the earth, as Franz Fanon referred to those whom Paulo Freire called the rag pickers among humanity, those who find their food, clothing, and other necessities in the garbage piles of the world. International solidarity means, for me, among other things, that those of us in the North must understand our place in the world as oppressors, with the power to disrupt, destroy, colonize, and otherwise to steal land and people, as the North has always done. We from the United States in particular have a particular responsibility, for no country has as ugly a record of genocide across the planet, not even Nazi Germany. And I say this as a Jew who lost family in the Holocaust. My own background is that I grew up in New York, in the periphery. I was involved in social movements in the 1960s and 1970s in the United States, and I have been a political activist in one way or another for over 50 years. Now I'm a college professor trying to continue to do the work that I've been doing, but in a different way now as an academic, but continuing to be politically active. Freire wrote in Pedagogia da Autonomia, my abhorrence, hatred of neoliberalism helps to explain my legitimate anger when I speak of the injustices to which the rag pickers among humanity are condemned. It also explains my total lack of interest in any pretension or claim of impartiality. I am not impartial or objective, not a fixed observer of facts and happenings. In this sense, I want to be like Freire, I never want to be impartial, neutral, or uninvolved. The radical US historian Howard Zinn wrote, "You can't be neutral on a moving train." That means to me that we need to understand that the train is moving. That is, that the struggles between the oppressed and the oppressors exist, continue, and are constantly in motion. In such a situation, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Words from a member of a revolutionary black organization in the US in the 60s and 70s. So for me, international solidarity means working with others across the planet in an effort to bring more peace and justice to all peoples. This may include doing critical mathematics education and many other things as well. It is with this perspective that I approach this talk here today. And in the North, so while the title of this talk is From the South to the North, I think I need to start with my context in the North. I would like to bring together several things. Some of the recent social movement history in Chicago, where I have lived and worked for the past 24 years, and connect it to what I am learning from the South. And I will use many pictures because they convey things perhaps better than my words. Where to begin? The movements for justice make up a river of struggle. Words from Vincent Harding, another US historian who was also a theologian of liberation. This picture, which I will return to later, is meant to show a river. This river represents the struggle. It never ends. In the middle is a situation of oppression, with people resisting the pressures upon them. Along the banks are many points through which people can enter the river. It is hard to know where to start the story, but I will start with the effort of the Mexican community of La Villita in Chicago. Parents in La Villita fought for years for a new high school. The powers in the city promised them their school, then supposedly ran out of money and instead built 2 schools in whiter and wealthier communities. Angry and frustrated after years of fighting, 14 residents, mainly women, including a grandmother and granddaughter, went on a 19-day hunger strike in 2001. Hunger strike, huelga de hambre, in Portuguese. Finally, the city gave in, surrendered, and built the school, the new school, which opened in 2005. The new building had 4 small schools, each to have eventually 400 students, with a theme based on community desires. One of the schools is a school for social justice, called Sojo, by everyone in Chicago. I was not involved in the hunger strike, but joined the team that designed and founded Sojo. And all 4 schools accepted any student from the neighborhood who wanted to come to the school. La Villita is the south part of the Lawndale community. North Lawndale is a black community. The school was planned to have 70% Latino students, Mexicanos, and 30% black students. Chicago is an extremely segregated city, and a railroad bridge divides North Lawndale, black, from South Lawndale, La Villita, Mexicano. North and South Lawndale have a history of working together politically, but also much tension. And both communities are economically disadvantaged and experience racism and city neglect, while having tremendous strengths and long histories of resistance. Sojo's beginnings. at the very beginning as we were inaugurating the school community. That's me up there, 13 years ago. Students in the school's first year from Sojo at the Immigration Rights March in Chicago of 500,000 people. And what's noteworthy about this picture is that there are both black students and what we call in Chicago and in the US, brown students, that is Latinas. Those are all students from the school. The inside front of the school, you may not be able to see, it says Mexicanos Unidos, involved leaders, African American, luchando, graduates, oportunidades, Latinos. And it's to represent the different peoples who are in the school building. The school stage, on your left are Mexican indigenous images, on your right, black or African American cultural images. Students leading an anti-racism march in Lawndale. Students learning, leading an anti-racism march in Lawndale. Students taking to the streets. They were in 9th grade, 14, 15 years old at the time. My brief history at Sojo with critical mathematics education. Sojo began with only a 9th grade, like the 3 other schools. US high schools have 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. When they start new schools, they often just start with the 9th grade. The next year they bring in another 9th grade, so you have 9th and 10th, another 9th grade the next year, and after 4 years you have the full 4 years. I started working in the classroom with students and teachers, co-developing and co-teaching critical mathematics education projects that we just stuck into the regular curriculum. I stayed with the entering class, that entering class of 9th grade, that was 98 students when we started, as they went to 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. I stayed working with that class, and the class shrunk because not everybody in Chicago, like in Brazil, finishes high school. I taught a 12th grade Math for Social Justice class, critical mathematics class, in 2008-9, using Paulo Freire's ideas as I understood them. Back to Chicago. While Sojo was being born out of struggle from the hunger strike, the Chicago Public Schools, CPS, was closing neighborhood schools, local schools that serve a particular neighborhood, mainly in black communities. In 2005, CPS was over 90% black and brown, and almost 90% economically disadvantaged. By 2018, CPS closed approximately 160 of the roughly 650 schools and replaced them with charter schools, which are a type of privatized education system. Roughly 1/4 of the schools have been closed in Chicago and then reopened as privatized schools. Resistance was strong. You see the tapes? People were to show that they were being silenced, and grew stronger over time. People went into the streets and into CPS's boardroom, where they had their board meetings. A petition smuggled in to take back a neighborhood school that we opened up once we were inside. Another shot of the petition. Students grading the system, giving the system an F on fairness and putting children first. This was at the board meeting. Can we use your internet? Students who did not have a public library with internet came downtown to City Hall to say, can we use your internet? We don't have it in our community. An angry parent leading an occupation of CPS's board meeting, where we took over the meeting and chased out the officials. School closings across the US. You may not be able to see the numbers, and these numbers are already old data. This is maybe 3 or 4 years old. There are hundreds and hundreds of schools in the United States that have been closed and privatized, mainly in black and brown, economically disadvantaged communities, never in rich white communities. Saving Walter H. Diet High School, Bronzeville, Chicago's black metropolis, is a famous black community in Chicago. In 2004, the city of Chicago had what they called their Mid-South Plan, because Bronzeville is in the south side of Chicago, to close 20 of the 22 schools in the neighborhood. Basically, close all the public education. As you can imagine, people fought back hard. The people in the community developed the Bronzeville Global Achievers Village, a connected village of 6 schools, a high school and 5 basic education. We call it elementary education, that fed into the high school. But in 2012, CPS board attacked the schools and closed 3 of those, destroying the vision of having a connected village. In 2014, the community stepped back and said, we are going to fight to save Walter H. Diet High School. Diet High School. City Hall, the Prefectura. This is that. Blocking the elevators. Blocking the elevators. Those people, in the middle of that, there's a statue. That's George Washington. That's where the mayor's office is. People chained themselves to the statue to be arrested, go to jail in protest to save the school. This was the proposal that we submitted to the city to have a school in the vision of the community. And these are the 12 people who eventually started a 34-day hunger strike. The hunger strike in La Villita was 19 days in 2001. This hunger strike in Bronzeville in 2015 was 34 days. This is day 1 of the hunger strike. That's the school building out in front. It was in the summer of 2015. And those are 11 of the 12 hunger strikers. There's one missing from that picture. The big banner. Some hunger strikers and community residents. Some very tired and weak hunger strikers. More hunger strikers. And after the hunger strike was over, after the 34 days, this was the victory celebration, because we actually won keeping the school open, although we did not get the plan of the community. So it was a partial victory. I'm going to show you a video of the hunger strike. It's in English. It goes fast. But it will give you a sense. 5 minutes. We hope the technology works.
In 2012, CPS decided to phase up my school.
We have no public schools. Now you cannot go.
CPS decided to reverse the decision to phase out diet, and as a result of pressure from parents, community members, and students.
Instead of honoring the community plan and believing in democracy, Alderman Will Burns has given diet over to private operators.
I am inspired by the Little Village, the hunger strike, because they had a school built from the ground up. And so I'm here waging a hunger strike till we get to school, because I believe in the school and I believe in our proposal.
If I have to go without food, to have a neighborhood school that my grandkids will still be able to go to, by any means necessary, whatever I have to do. We need to take it back. This is ours. Only way to teach your children to fight is for them to see you fight.
Because it's like I'm not valued as a black mother.
It's something a parent, a mom would do, her instinct. Even at this point, it wouldn't even go down. We realized that never understanding would allow us to die rather than listen to the voices of over 4,000 people in our community.
But again, with community resistance and this hunger strike, we pushed CPS and the mayor to commit to reopening Diet as a public, open enrollment neighborhood school. We have been able to shine a light both nationally and internationally on the fight of the working class, black and brown communities and the separate and unequal education system that exists in these neglected communities. We have debunked the narrative that privatizers have feasted on for way too long, this narrative that black and brown parents do not care about their students' education. The history of Diet has helped to illuminate the fact that our schools are not failing, but they have been failed and disinvested in purposely in order to justify privatization. So we will continue to fight until Diet global leadership and green technology is a reality.
That was the hunger strike. So I'm going to, so this is the 1-year anniversary of the hunger strike. On your left are 2 of the Bronzeville hunger strikers. And on your right are 2 of the little village, the La Villita hunger strike from 14 years earlier. So the people came across the community to work together. I'm going to read to you the words of this woman, one of the hunger strikers, who you hear at the end of the hunger strike talking, because she says it fast, and I didn't even catch her words the first 5 times I watched the video, so I'm going to read them to you. From community resistance and this hunger strike, we pushed CPS and the mayor to commit to reopening Diet as a public, open enrollment neighborhood school. We have been able to shine a light, both nationally and internationally, on the plight of working class Black and brown communities and the separate and unequal education system that exists in these neglected communities. We have rebuffed the narrative that privatizers have feasted on for way too long. This narrative that Black and brown parents do not care about their students' education. The history of Diet has helped to illuminate the fact that our schools are not failing, but they have been failed and divested in purposely in order to justify privatization. So we will continue to fight until Diet global leadership and green technology is a reality. Monique Rideau. So now I want to talk about this current, present historical moment and the dangers and opportunities. So the situation is very difficult. But Yeats wrote almost a century ago, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This is a period where the center cannot hold, where in the US, we have Trump in the White House and Bernie Sanders on the left, where Brazil has Jair Bolsonaro on the right and PSOL Lula and others on the left. And with the extreme polarization, we have tremendous dangers of fascism, anti-immigrant racism against Muslims, and simultaneously we have tremendous opportunity. Why opportunity? Because things are not normal and expectations are unfulfilled. What used to be is no longer. In the US, Trump has unleashed white supremacy, racism, in ways that have woken up many whites in the US. In the US, the movement for Black lives is powerful. When Trump first proposed the bans on Muslims coming to the US, people spontaneously rushed to airports to protest. Wherever there is repression, there is always resistance. So with the very real dangers come very real possibilities at the very same time. How can we build on these opportunities? How do we learn to turn danger into possibility? Freire wrote, a radical and critical education has to focus on what is taking place today inside various social movements and labor unions, feminist movements, peace movements, and other such movements that express resistance generate in their practice a pedagogy of resistance. What is a pedagogy of resistance? Freire wrote consistently that educators needed political clarity, by which he meant a level of comprehension of the complex whole of relations among objects. He had a view of how we develop political clarity. And Freire wrote about the relationship between education and liberation in a pre-revolutionary situation. He wrote Pedagogical oprimido in 1968 in Chile in the dynamic period just before the 1970 election of Salvador Allende, the first socialist to be elected president in any country, and only 5 years before the US-backed coup overthrew Allende's government and brought in Pinochet's years of dictatorship. Freire's point was that people, through the process of writing themselves into history, engaging in political struggle in their own behalf, would learn how to make the new world they were building. He wrote, "The revolutionary process is dynamic, and it is in this continuing dynamics, in the praxis of the people with the revolutionary leaders, that the people and the leaders will learn both dialogue and the use of power. This is as obvious as affirming that a person learns to swim in the water, not in a library." Of course, Freire, as a radical intellectual, valued libraries and theory highly, though he always discussed academic study and theoretical reflection in dialectical relation with practice and action, the unity of which he referred to as praxis. But he understood that we do not learn to swim in a library through his experience as a Brazilian and student of the history of African people who fought against slavery in Brazil. He wrote that the quilombos, like other similar settlements in the Americas, were places of safety and creativity, where enslaved peoples took their existences and history in hand and found their freedom through a reinvention of life. These spaces constituted an exemplary moment in that learning process of rebellion. It was not that people knew beforehand how to resist and rebel. Rather, it was through the process of resisting and rebelling that people, as subjects of history, learned how to do so. So what might this political clarity look like? Can we also support it in the classroom? That is, can we both engage young people in studying their own social realities and provide them opportunities to enter the river of struggle? It is no doubt difficult, but it may be possible. In my efforts to teach critical mathematics in urban public schools in Chicago's hood, periphery, I have tried to reinvent Paulo Freire and do this work. In the class I taught at Sojo of 12th grade students, 17 and 18 years old, in 2008-2009, I attempted to teach them to, and I use Freire's phrase here, but extend it to mathematics, read and write the world with mathematics, drawing on Freire, Frankenstein, Skolmosi, and others. This is the class, Falta dos. Their shirts say, "Danger, educated Latina," or "educated Latino," or "Danger, educated black man," or "black woman." These are some of the students reading and writing the world with mathematics. And I just show you some pictures of young people engaged in studying their own reality with mathematics as a way to learn mathematics and learn about their worlds. My students learned both mathematics and about their social reality. The road was not simple for them or me. We had to learn how to do this work. They also took what they learned to their community. But we should never view critical mathematics education as a magic solution to the very real problems faced here or in the US. There are no magic solutions. One of my students, Vero, wrote, "I've learned to question how and why." Mr. Rico, that's me. Mr. Rico told me that I was just giving people the mathematical answers. I went from questioning things in math to questioning things in life. Now I question everything and everyone. I asked her, why? Because we're taking regular math and implementing it. We use our knowledge to address other issues that affect others, people of color. She continued, "The reason why some people act so aggressive is not because that's how we are, but because that's how we are meant to be, because of what's happening to us. So like all the police and stuff, all these North Lawndale shootings, Little Village, La Villita shootings, another shooting, another kid dead, or something like that. It's just that that was led by something else. People don't just pop out with a gun and start shooting. It's because something is going on that is leading people to do certain things. It's not a way of excusing it, but it's a way of addressing the question, why?" Those are Freire's words. No oppressive order could allow the oppressed to begin to question why. From Pedagogical do Oprimido. Sometimes I just let people look at this picture and talk to each other, but we don't have time for that right now. Vero, who was questioning why, is a danger to the system. She is educated in the sense of developing a pedagogy of questioning, a critical disposition to understand the reasons for the oppression she experiences in her La Villita community. She is dangerous because she is an educated Latina, educated in the sense Freire spoke of. Joining the river of struggle. For the hunger strikers of Little Village, La Villita, in 2001, and those in Bronzeville in 2015, joining the struggle was pedagogical. They learned through their experiences. They learned, in the case of Bronzeville, that the mayor of Chicago would let them die, but for the bad publicity. They learned, even more deeply, what their community cared about through the collective work. And because they experienced support from around the world, they learned that their actions had meaning beyond their community, and that there was a basis for solidarity. This returns us to the theme of international solidarity and learning from the South. Freire's work at the World Council of Churches in Geneva in the 70s allowed him to participate in national liberation movements in Africa in various ways and profoundly influenced him, especially Guinea-Bissau, a former Portuguese colony. Shortly after gaining its independence from Portugal in 1974, the revolutionary government in Guinea-Bissau, led by the PAIGC, African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, invited Freire to help in its literacy campaign, an effort tied closely to national reconstruction after 5 centuries of devastating colonialism. Amilcar Cabral, the PAIGC leader. Cabral was a mentor to Freire. Freire's work in Guinea-Bissau was a powerful example of international solidarity. This is his book, Cartas a Guinea-Bissau. The PAIGC thought also that one learns to swim in the river. Amilcar Cabral, PAIGC's leader, was known even by his enemies as a serious political theorist, revolutionary humanist, and exceptional leader. He wrote in 1969, when the independence movement had already liberated perhaps 2/3 of the country, we must consider that we are learning how to wage struggle in step as we are advancing on the path. Here too, learning revolution by making revolution. Back to the US. Ferguson, Missouri, where Mike Brown was gunned down by police in 2015, and they left his body in the street for 4 hours before doing anything. The city of Ferguson erupted. These are some images from Ferguson. International solidarity. Palestinians who are affected by tear gas made by the same company that supplied the tear gas in Ferguson reached out to people in Ferguson from Palestine. Her sign says, "Ferguson with love from Palestine." International solidarity, learning from the South. That's a manifestation in New York, my hometown. My last point, hope, la esperanza. Where does hope come from? Freire wrote in his last book, before he died, his last complete book, "I am a teacher who favors the permanent struggle against every form of bigotry and against the economic domination of individuals and social classes. I am a teacher who rejects the present system of capitalism, responsible for the aberration of misery in the midst of plenty. I am a teacher full of the spirit of hope, in spite of all signs to the contrary." This spirit of hope, Freire reminded us, comes with the fight for a brighter future, based on new relations between people. He wrote that without hope, the struggle weakens and dies. But without the struggle, hope is meaningless and does not change reality. They need each other, like a fish needs clean water. Hope comes from the young people in front of us, the young people in front of me. From the streets of Sao Paulo to the streets of Chicago, from the streets of Palestine to the streets of Ferguson. Hope comes from engaging in the river of struggle, because it is through that process, at whatever point we enter the river, that we are learning how to wage struggle in step as we are advancing on the path. That is, the struggle is pedagogical, because you don't learn to swim in the library. Hope for us in the North also comes from learning from the South, understanding and practicing international solidarity. That is, from the South to the North. To end, I share the words of one of my Sojo students. Reading and writing the world with mathematics for me is interpreting and making our judgment of the social and political reality of our community and the world we live in. At the same time, I learned how to make connections with mathematics and the real world. We do it because it helps us understand and combat against oppression and injustice in our communities and in the world. But more importantly, we do it to be educated in knowing what we are fighting against. Obrigado. Why don't you say Portuguese first and then in English, since he's bilingual?
Eu gostaria de saber como que a mídia local mostrou essa luta pessoal de 2015 nessa escola. Se foi favorável, se mostraram um viés contra, como foi isso reportado na mídia dos Estados Unidos? I don't know this fight against the closing of the school in 2015 was reported on the media in the United States. It was like they put it in a bad manner, or how it was?
We had a great social media team. We had a great social media team. We did a hunger strike captured the media attention. You have people starving themselves out in the park in the day and sleeping in the church at night. So we had pretty good media attention.
Eles receberam bastante atenção da mídia. Eles tinham as pessoas fazendo a greve, acho que era no parque, durante o dia, e à noite eles dormindo na igreja. Né?
Also, during the hunger strike, the mayor of the city held 3 budget hearings on the city budget in 3 different communities around the city.
Durante a greve, o prefeito, eu não entendi muito bem essa parte do...
Reuniões orçamentárias.
Reunião de orçamento com a comunidade?
Isso, 3.
3 comunidades, mas eu não entendi muito bem o que isso tinha a ver com a mídia. Pode ver
We busted up 2 of them. We busted up 2 of them. We disrupted, we took them over, we screamed at the mayor, we disrupted and stopped the hearings.
Aí durante essas reuniões, 2 delas entraram, destruíram tudo e acabaram com a reunião.
The mayor, his police got him and ran him out of the building.
E aí a polícia lá da prefeitura começou a tirar todo mundo fora da... O mayor, o prefeito evacuou,
Sometimes you have to take the media into your own hands.
Algumas vezes você tem que pegar a mídia nas suas próprias mãos.
Overall, we had pretty good coverage, and like I said, we did a tremendous amount of social media.
Então, eles, em geral, eles tinham uma boa cobertura e também muito ação na mídia social, que deve ser Facebook.
And I should say, I'm part of an organization called Teachers for Social Justice.
Ele faz parte de uma organização chamada Professores para a Justiça Social.
2 of our members were hunger strikers.
2 dos membros deles participaram dessa greve de fome.
And we participated in providing many of the supports for the hunger strike.
E essa associação deu muito suporte para essa greve de fome dos professores, dos pais. Tudo bem? Alguém mais? Francisca, depois o Guilherme. Você também? Não. Francisca e Guilherme.
Você vai traduzir, por favor. Boa tarde. Eu sou professora na Universidade Estadual de Goiás. E eu fiquei muito interessada na questão dessas lutas, questão de comunidades. Eu queria saber se essa associação, não sei se é assim que a gente pode chamar, só existe em Chicago, ou, por exemplo, eu como professora de Goiás, aqui no Brasil, tenho interesse em participar, entender melhor como que eu faço para ter essa comunicação aí nessa palestra.
Do you mean I'm not sure I understand when you say in contact with the association, do you mean in the US or do you mean here in Brazil?
Entendeu?
Me entendi. Você perguntou se a associação é lá ou aqui no Brasil.
Se você está interessado aqui no Brasil ou se você quer saber mais de lá, da associação de lá.
Então, aqui no Brasil tem esse tipo de associação também? Eu não conheço.
So that's a good question.
Sorry.
One of the strengths of the education justice movement in the United States, we have many weaknesses, but one of our strengths is there are relationships between teachers and parents in the community.
Ele falou que essa associação tem muitos pontos fracos, mas uma das coisas fortes é a ligação que eles têm entre os professores e os pais na comunidade.
In Chicago, in the United States, Chicago is known for a couple of things.
Nos Estados Unidos, Chicago é conhecida, a cidade de Chicago, por várias coisas.